Welcome, everyone. Perfect. Thank you, Hannah. Welcome, everyone, to the first Creating an Eco-Living Kitchen workshop. We're really excited to have you all here and want to thank you for joining us today. Next slide, Anne. So quick overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to do an introduction so you get to know us, we get to know you, and you sort of know what we're going to tackle today. We're going to talk about the purpose of meal planning, why this is what we're focusing on. We're going to give you some waste reduction tips to help you make a meal plan that is ecologically friendly and sustainable and better for our planet. And then we're going to look at meal planning in action, featuring one of our project members who couldn't make it here today. We're going to have a quick activity, and then we're going to have discussion questions at the end and a conclusion. But we really encourage you to engage throughout the whole process, not just in the discussion portion. Please feel free to ask questions at any time or, talk amongst yourselves in the chat. That's all excellent. Next slide, Anne. Perfect. I don't even need to tell Anne, she's on my wavelength. Awesome. So I'd like to acknowledge that some of us are coming to you today from the traditional and unceded territory of the Lheidli T'enneh, and that's here in Prince George. I'd encourage you, if you're somewhere else, to put the territory that you're on into the chat. If you don't know which one you're on or whose land you're on, please look it up at nativeland.ca, and that's a really great way of finding out where we're currently residing on Indigenous lands. Awesome, thanks, Shauna. Shauna just dropped the link into the chat. So let's get into who we are. ELK is a Prince George-based project and initiative that's funded through the Co-Creating a Sustainable BC project, which is run through the Fraser Basin Council. And we're a group of youth who've come together to try and tackle kitchen waste and issues of sustainability in the kitchen within Prince George. But one of the reasons, as I mentioned, that we're recording this workshop is we want this information to be available for the wider North as well. So the team includes myself. My name is Helga. I use they, them pronouns sometimes and other pronouns some other times. I'm a student at UNBC currently in forestry and wildlands conservation, and sustainability and environmental stuff is kind of my passion, and that's what led me here. So the team will go through and we'll introduce ourselves. I'll get Shauna to go next.
Yeah, so hi everyone, I'm Shauna. I use she, her pronouns. I'm also a student at UNBC, but I'm in environmental and sustainability studies, and similar to Helga, I'm pretty passionate about all things sustainability and trying to be a bit more environmentally friendly in all that we do. Thanks. And I'll pass it to Hannah.
Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. I also use she, her pronouns, and I also go to UNBC. And I'm doing a degree also with Shauna in environmental and sustainability studies. And I'm here because I really like the idea of focusing on the environment and sustainability at the local level. And I think it's important to target that because I think sometimes it can be forgotten or kind of put to the wayside as opposed to other levels of government or access. So yeah. And we'll go to Anne.
Hey guys, I'm Anne, and I also use she and her pronouns. I'm also a student at UNBC in the Natural Resources and Environmental Science program, and I'm also super passionate about the environment and meeting a bunch of talented young folks as well to try to, make the world a better place. So.
Awesome, thanks everyone. So in terms of the workshop, we're going to be sort of providing information, delivering information, some skills and tricks and tips, but we're by no means experts. And we believe that it's really important when tackling climate change and sustainability issues to create a collaborative environment where we can all share our strengths and work on our weaknesses together. So that's really the model for this workshop. We want to learn with and from each other, creating a space where we can ask the questions we need to ask and contribute whatever answers we can. So we just ask that you be respectful, kind, and patient with each other and with us as we all learn together. So then, before we move on, if you're comfortable with it, we'd love to hear who you are, just your name, your pronouns, if you'd like to share those, and then where you're residing currently. Samuel, do you want to start it off? I'll pick on you because I know who you are.
Yeah, my name is Samuel Cleary. I go for he, him pronouns. I live in Langley in the Fraser Valley. And yeah, I'm just excited to learn with everyone here.
Awesome. Thanks, Samuel. Hi, Margaret.
So I'm Margaret. I also live in Prince George, probably the oldest person in the room by decades, but that's okay. I'm good with she or they. Really doesn't matter to me. I'm a little bit, pronoun agnostic. Just interested to see where this goes.
Hi, I'm Jean. I live in the Algonquin region, and I'm interested in learning this topic for beginners because I haven't cooked before. So right now I just have eggs, onions, and I think that's it at my house, but really excited to learn some things.
Awesome. Well, welcome everyone. We're excited to have you. Let's go right into it. All right, so when we're talking about waste prevention, the kitchen is a really tough place. The kitchen contains a lot of consumables. It contains a lot of the stuff we buy for our life every day, and those things come with a lot of packaging. So it produces a huge diversity of waste. We have appliances, we have wrapping, we have inorganic and organic waste in the kitchen. And that has actually increased dramatically since the start of the pandemic. It's always been a problem, but it's been found that Canadians have been producing 13.5% more organic waste alone since this pandemic started. And that's because we've been spending a lot more time in our kitchens at home. And we've sort of been forced to cook at home, to take our takeout home and do all of those kinds of things. And one of the ways that we can really tackle that waste is by creating detailed plans that allow us to look at what we're buying, why we're buying it, and when we're going to use it by. We've seen in Prince George especially, but across Canada, some of the challenges that COVID has given us in terms of food and waste. I mentioned takeout already. In Prince George, we've had a tough time because the local food kitchens have been forced to also go to takeout, and there isn't always a proper way of disposal for the folks who have to use those resources. For ourselves, who are lucky enough to have homes, we also are doing takeout a lot more because we can't eat out. And so we're left with all those containers, and that's a ton of plastics. I don't know about anyone else, but there is no option often to refuse cutlery, and people will even give it to you if you ask not to have it. And so it's really tough to keep those plastics down. One of the first things to go, as we saw at the beginning of the pandemic, was things like bringing your own reusable bags to the grocery store, or bringing your own reusable mug to a coffee shop. And those are really easy day-to-day things for everyone to do, and we've kind of been robbed of those. So by tackling things that we can do at home in the kitchen, ELK is hoping to kind of provide a way for people to build skills in sustainability that are really current, but also will last beyond this current situation. So we're going to look at ways that we can reduce waste. Oh, thank you, Anne. But it's important to know before we meal plan what we're likely to waste most. So by far, that's things that are highly perishable, like fruits and vegetables. And then that's followed up by white meats, like chicken. And it is estimated by researchers that approximately 50% of all fruits and vegetables that are purchased are thrown away. And that's really troubling because we also know that fruits and vegetables are some of the best things we can eat to help the planet because they have a lower carbon cost in terms of production and transportation than a lot of meats do. So why does it matter that organic waste is thrown away? Well, we know that if plastics or packaging are not recycled, they go to the landfill. But organic wastes biodegrade even if they go to the landfill. And that's true to some extent, but the process of biodegrading within a landfill is really different from in a compost or in an open area, because waste in a landfill is highly compressed and there's a lack of oxygen, which creates an anaerobic environment. The only creatures and bacteria that can survive in that environment actually produce methane instead of carbon dioxide when they're degrading those organic products. And methane is thought to be approximately 7 times more dangerous to the environment than carbon dioxide because it can heat to a much greater extent, even though it's less, it lasts for less time in the atmosphere. So we really want to try and keep that kind of organic waste out of the landfill. Next slide, Anne. So meal planning is a really handy way for us to go about this because it helps us to see what we need exactly. A lot of the food that gets wasted because it goes past its due date or it's in the fridge too long and we can no longer eat it. So by carefully planning our meals, we can reduce the amount of food that we neglect or the amount of food that we forget to consume. It can help save money. If you know before you go into the grocery store exactly what you're going to buy and exactly what you need, then it's a lot harder to say, oh, I'm going to grab this and that, and maybe I need some of those. A meal plan is really like a plan of attack for the grocery store, and it can make shopping efficient and easy. One of the things that it can be useful to do as well is that it can help you to track the kind of food you consume and how much of it. So we're encouraged more and more to eat more plant-based and to at least have plants for the majority of our meals or plant proteins during the week. Meal planning can help you do that. It can say, okay, I'm going to have meat as a protein on Wednesday and Friday, and the rest of the meals I'm going to plan to be vegetarian, right? So it can be helpful for those kinds of things. When you want to reduce cost, that's also really easy. If you're planning meals and you look at what's costing you most in those meals, meal planning is like a perfect little guidebook to follow through and look at which ingredients are costing you the most so you can plan differently. And it's really versatile. It looks different for everyone. So when I meal plan, I make a list of the meals I want to eat, not necessarily day by day, but just in a week. And then I create my shopping list from there. But we're going to see a specific method later on as to how to go about this.
All right, so now we're going to segue and show you some examples that Rai, one of our members who couldn't make it today from Williams Lake, filmed for all of you to see. So first of all, we're just gonna show a video about waste reduction tips when you're shopping. So I'm gonna play it right now. Hopefully you can hear it.
Hi, I'm Rai from Eco Living Kitchen, and today you'll be joining me on a quick and hopefully educational trip down to my local farmers market. Right now I'm here at Laketown Furnishings in Williams Lake, one of Williams Lake's green businesses. Just a quick shout out that they have the proper storage containers and kitchen products that can help extend the life of food. And they've also got some of these really cool to-go bottles, which I recommend picking up if you don't have one already. Today I'd like to talk about how we can cut down waste in the kitchen, starting before food even enters the home. The average Canadian household loses hundreds of dollars a year in food waste. Effective planning can help mitigate this in your home. When you set off to the grocery store, make sure you're equipped with a reusable bag. I know it's cliche at this point, but it's time for us to outgrow the use of one-time plastics as a society. Save money and valuable time by bringing a reusable bag. Don't worry if it's already too late and you forgot. There are boxes at most grocery stores which can help solve this problem. Remember to recycle, and if you wish, you can use unmarked cardboard in the compost. And I would recommend picking up a mesh produce bag as well, as they're more of a eco-friendly alternative to some of the thin plastic one-time use produce bags you'll see in the store. The next point I'd like to cover is choosing glass when you can. So anything that comes in a glass container is going to have a little bit of an edge over a plastic container, just because then you're getting that glass jar for free, right? And that's another reusable product. So don't let the price tag fool you. The glass jar is almost always a better option because, again, you can use it for years to come. Avoid plastics if at all possible because they often break down and are safe to use long term. I do realize that many foods are only available in plastic wrap. In this case, I recommend always choosing the option with the least amount of packaging, unless the plastic seems reusable. Or the other thing I'd like to mention is bag seals can greatly extend the life of your product. So if you've got a bag that's got kind of a Ziploc feature or one of those little sliding Ziplocs, that's kind of a benefit over the traditional bag where as soon as you open it, you got to seal it back up or else the food spoils. And just to mitigate that problem, I would recommend getting a plastic or even better, a metal bag clip. You can find those at places like Laketown Furnishings. The next thing that I would like to talk about is just shipping. So today you'll be coming with me down to the farmers market, so all local, relatively sustainable products. If you want to check out your local grocery store, the only thing I would be wary of is if you see food which is shipped a longer distance, that means that it will most likely spoil a little bit faster. And you know, it's always good to support as much local as you can for sustainability, economic and environmental sustainability. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is meal planning can help cut down waste in your home. So the advantage to meal planning is you can basically buy ingredients around what you plan to use. That way we're not ending up with spoiled jars or spoiled vegetables in the fridge. So this is a real problem in most Canadian kitchens where a lack of planning is leading to pounds of food waste every year, if not every month. So make sure you know what you already have and incorporate ingredients into your meal plan. For example, let's say you brought a wonderful jar of organic preservative-free tomato sauce, and that will spoil in roughly a week after opening. With this in mind, we could make a spaghetti, perhaps a lasagna, homemade pizza, some of those type of things. If that's out of your scope of comfort, you can always add it to homemade burgers or sandwiches. It's a great addition. So it's just really keeping in mind what you've got already, then setting out prepared with a clear plan of how you're going to reduce waste when you go and you buy, you know, your favorite foods. First of all, what are the options of the packaging that it comes in? And then secondly, how can you plan your meal plan for that week around some of the ingredients that you've bought? So thank you so much for joining me, and I'll see you guys at the farmers market. Hi, I'm Rye from Eco Living Kitchen, and today...
All right, and we're going to move on to the next video where Rye visits the farmers market.
Hi, I'm Rye. Hi, and thank you for joining me here at my local farmers market in Williams Lake. If you have a chance, I always recommend shopping at the farmers market to support local artisans, as well as enjoying fresh food and often more sustainable packaging. If you live somewhere without a farmers market, don't worry, the grocery stores have lots of good options as well if you're looking for ways to reduce waste. Of course, it's a little bit more difficult to meal plan when you never know what the farmers market might be out of stock in. However, if you're comfortable with making a plan on the go, the farmers market is a great way to shop more sustainably, keep food local, and support local business. Thank you for joining me here today, and hopefully you found these shopping tips helpful. Just have a look. It's really inspiring how many folks have showed up here today to enjoy the local farmers market, get some fresh food, support local business. All right, thank you very much. Hi, and thank you for joining. Hi, and thank you for...
Awesome. So thanks, Rye, for all those amazing videos. So I'm just going to summarize what Rye talked about because those are pretty long and you might have missed some things. So I'm just going to summarize. And I just want to say I really love the engaging chats. It's really amazing. And just keep putting things in there that you think other people might benefit from if you have any advice or tips. So yeah, just keep going at it in the chat. So just to summarize what Rye was talking about, basically, when you go grocery shopping, one thing is to meal plan and find meals that you want to eat and the ingredients that are in those meals, but also how they are packaged. And that's really important because all that packaging is waste that will go into the landfill. And you want to make sure that what you're buying has the minimal amount of packaging as possible. And if there is packaging, is there utility after that, after you eat and that package is left over or that glass jar is left over, could you use it for something else? So that's also really important. So I sort of made a little hierarchy here. So if you're going to be using things that have packaging in them, just consider, is it in glass? Because if it's in glass, you can always use it to put other foods in there. So I know often with my glass jars, I would bring them to Bulk Barn, and then I would put seeds or nuts or dried fruit or anything that you get from Bulk Barn, and you can just reuse them again and again. So glass is really a great packaging product. And then after that are resealable plastic bags. So again, you can use resealable plastic bags to keep your food there for longer, and it won't spoil as fast. And you can use it to put anything in there. I sometimes put pencils and erasers in these resealable plastic bags as well. So, and then of course, conventional plastic bags, which you can of course use again and again. If you go shopping, you can bring your own reusable bags, and those could be the plastic bags that you find at the grocery store. Or you can also get a box as well. And those boxes you can recycle later, or you can use if you're moving anywhere to put your clothing or whatever you need in those boxes to move. So yeah, there's the packaging, which is really important to consider. And then another thing is consider the ingredients that you want to use when you're meal planning and make a list. And so Rye will talk about that in the next video. So I'll show you that later on how to do that. And also in the last video where Rye was visiting the farmer's market, it's also really important to buy local. Not only are you supporting your local farmers, but you're also ensuring that the food doesn't travel as long to get there, which means that it won't spoil as fast. And also you're reducing the carbon footprint from things that are flying or using other types of fuel transport to get there. So yeah, are there any questions so far from those two videos? You can put in the chat if you want, or you can just raise your hand. If not, I'll show the next video, which goes into the meal planning part.
Hi, this is Rye from Eco Living Kitchen, and today you'll be joining me on making a meal plan. So first of all, we've got our pen, paper, ruler, and it doesn't have to be anything fancy here. This is basically just a really nice grocery list in the sense that it's going to serve a purpose, but it doesn't have to be anything super fancy. So I'm just going to add a few columns here. And what we're going to do is we're going to put down the days of the week. So let's just put Monday, Tuesday. Hi, this is Rye from Eco Living Kitchen. Wednesday, Thursday, Loud Dog, Friday, Saturday, and finally Sunday. Okay, so we're just gonna do 1 week, and we're just gonna do dinner for simplicity's sake, but you could apply this to any set of meals really if you wanted to. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna write down in this first column, we'll just block it off a little bit better. It doesn't have to be super big. This is probably the smallest column we'll need. We're just gonna write whatever we want to eat for dinner that day. So let's say on Monday, let's say we're gonna make a homemade pizza. That's pretty ambitious, right? It's kind of a harder one, but we're just gonna write down the ingredients that we'll need. So the first ingredients, what we're gonna write down are non-perishables, and these are items that they will perish, but they're not gonna go bad within the first week to 2 weeks, and that's cheese, flour, oil, salt. Okay, any of these products aren't going bad. Now, I don't want to enter the debate on toppings, so I'm going to leave that up to your discretion. But let's just assume most toppings won't go bad right away if you're using things like mushrooms. Anything that's canned won't go bad. If it's something that's open, like say you're somebody who likes to have peppers or something like that on their pizza, just be mindful to put that in this next category, which is the perishables. So I'm just going to make a little dividing line here. And I'm going to put this tomato sauce because as soon as we open that jar, we need to make sure we use it this week. So let's plan Tuesday's meal around what we just wrote for Monday, that we need to use this tomato sauce for sure. So that brings us to spaghetti. So let's use some spaghetti. And again, we've got noodles, they're not going to go bad. We've got the option to use meat. Put this in your perishables. You'll want to use it right away unless you're either freezing it or you've got some alternative method of storing it for longer. So we've got noodles, and then we've got our basically just our tomato sauce, meat if we're using meat, and I like to add cottage cheese. And that's another perishable because that will go bad this week if we just leave it in the fridge, most likely. So Wednesday, let's plan around that. So let's use lasagna because we want to really get rid of the last bit of tomato sauce and cottage cheese until we have none of those ingredients left. So in a lasagna, we usually put in things like, let's say, some onions, maybe some other assorted vegetables depending on your taste. And some of these vegetables, depending on what they are going to go bad soon. So things like carrots tend to stay in the fridge a lot longer without really going bad as long as they're kind of in a sealed environment. But things like peppers, we're going to want to use pretty quickly if you've used any peppers, or if you've used part of an onion and you can't kind of seal it back up, you want to use that again. So then we come on to our next day. So let's say we still have maybe some vegetables. We'll go some potatoes and veggies, and again, optional meat, and that's where you could use meat again. So you can use, now you've got potatoes, we've got some assorted veggies, and we've got the option of meat. Okay. And then that brings us on to Friday. And let's say at this point, we've basically just got some meat left, and we want to use it up in some sandwiches, so we can go ahead and do that. And let's say we'll make some lettuce, beef sandwiches, and this is obviously going to go bad soon. Lettuce wilts really quickly. So the next day, let's say we've got a salad. Option again to add meat if we wish to. We're just really using up that lettuce. If we've got any assorted vegetables left, we'll use those too. And then finally, that brings us to Sunday. And Sunday, I always like to recommend using a soup because you can make soup of pretty much anything. And if you've got anything left over from the week that's about to go bad, this is a really good solution, is making something like a soup or a stew or even a rice curry if you just need to use up some of these miscellaneous vegetables, if you've got to use up any potatoes, if you've got to use up let's say if you had any leftover beef, like if you've got any bones, stuff like that, you can definitely boil that. So these are just a few ideas, and this is just a really, really simple meal plan, what you could emulate really easily, and you're just going to keep this in mind for when you go shopping and when you're planning your week, so that you don't buy a bunch of vegetables or sauce or whatever it is that's going to spoil. So this is just thinking ahead before we go shopping. What am I going to buy this week? And, you know, how can I use my food to the best, put it to the best use, I guess would be the best way to say this. How can I maximize the efficiency of my grocery shopping to actually feed, you know, yourself and your family versus throwing it in the garbage, because that's not only bad for the environment, but that's also kind of, you know, throwing away money and time. So, with all that in mind, it's time to get shopping. Thank you for joining me for today's video.
So thanks again, Rai, for that awesome video on how to meal plan. This is perfect because I can just cut this out, put in my fridge. This is already one meal that I don't have to worry about. So this is a great example of how to meal plan. And just to summarize, you don't really need anything fancy to meal plan. You can just have a pen, paper, and a ruler, as Rai did. Or you can use a planner or a calendar, whatever works for you. As Helga said, it's different for everyone. But it's really great to be able to organize your meals so that you're able to plan and you don't stress about your next meal, and you make sure that you're eating nutritious foods and you're not wasting food. What's really important about this is to make sure you also separate your perishables and non-perishables, as Rai mentioned, because of course you should use your perishables right away. So whenever you're making a meal plan list, try to consider what is going to perish faster and what can last longer. So then you can plan your meals around that. And then of course, another great tip is ending the week with a soup or a stew with all the other vegetables or produce that you're not using. It's very, very easy to make a stew with anything, absolutely anything. Don't do what I did though, because I had some pears that were going bad and they were spoiling. And guess what? I thought, oh, you know, I can make a soup out of everything. And I made a pear soup, and it was not very appealing, to say the least. So just sort of make sure that you make sure that it's edible, of course, but for yourself. But a lot of vegetables are safe to be put in soups or curries. And I see in the chat there that there's a lot of other ideas as well. You can also do a stir fry as well. That's pretty safe. So yeah, that's the meal planning demonstration that we have. And for our next activity, Shauna's going to take over, and we're going to make you guys make a meal plan. So Shauna, take it away.
Yeah, so as Anne said, we're actually going to now put you all, maybe not to the test, but we're going to try and see what we can make up together out of the ingredients shown on the screen in a meal plan. So we can, for different folks, this could look a bit different. For people like me, you could be making one meal and just making a bunch of it for the whole week as your meal plan. For others, you might like a little bit more diversity throughout the week. So that's why we have quite a variety. So on the screen here, you'll see potatoes, black beans, lentils, carrots, canned tomatoes, onions, pasta, corn, and eggs. So feel free to jump in if you have any ideas of what meal you could make out of these ingredients. It doesn't have to be all of them at once, but a few of them.
I'm just going to jump in here, Shauna, and let folks know that while these are your ingredients, you have unlimited sauces and seasonings. So we're all for seasoning your food, and it's a really important step that can make even, you know, the same 5 ingredients in 5 different meals make all the difference if they're all seasoned differently. So you have whatever cupboard of seasonings you desire in this case.
Thanks, Helga. So I see in the chat, we do have a stew coming in, and there's definitely quite a couple different stews you can make out of these ingredients if you want to go for more of a black bean base or a lentil base. A big batch of chili, I think, is definitely a great one. Also served over mashed potatoes all week. That would be a pretty great week, I think. Baked potatoes topped with salsa. Quiche, ooh. If anybody wants to share aloud too, feel free. Got a frittata and a breakfast meal, so kind of like a breakfast hash going on. Being plant-based, not eating the eggs. Yeah, that's also very fair. So when it comes to meal planning, of course, what ingredients you're going to choose depending on your personal diet and preferences is going to look a bit different. So maybe instead of the eggs, you're going for an egg replacer, or maybe just using avocados instead as a egg substitute. It's got gnocchi coming in. Lots of really great ideas. So as we can see here, there's quite a lot of opportunity. You know, you look at what's on the screen here and it really doesn't look like a lot, but just buying these ingredients at the start of the week can actually set you up for a week or more even of meals, depending on how much you buy. And in looking at this as well, that's also going to save you a lot of money. If you're going into the grocery store thinking, okay, I'm just going to buy these like 5 to 10 items and that's going to be it for the week. Compared to like a whole shopping cart full of food, you're going to save quite a bit of money doing that. And also, yeah, using the chia or flax instead of eggs. Any other ideas for meals? One baked potato and several raw eggs. Interesting. Yeah, and I think we're all going to be ready for some dinner after this. Cocoa powder sticking, maybe some hidden in the back of your cupboard, or if you're someone like myself who frequently makes chocolate cake, a lot of it sitting at the front of the cupboard. A carrot cake would also be pretty good. So yeah, even depending on what you have in your cupboard or the additional pieces that you want to buy, this kind of base of ingredients can range you from breakfast through dessert at the end of the night. So really quite the variety that's available. Curried carrot and lentil soup. That sounds really good too. Perhaps we'll have to start making a community cookbook with all the meals we come up with from this.
Sometimes if you make too much of a stew or a soup, even if it's a curry, it can be nice to boil up some pasta the next day and use it as a pasta sauce. I've done that a couple times.
So with that, we got a lot of really awesome meals. The other piece that we've been talking about today is the packaging that you're looking at and the waste that's actually being created by the food you're buying. So on the screen here, what different types of waste might we be creating by buying the ingredients like this? Thoughts?
I would really like that burlap sack from those potatoes to use around my garden. So maybe a waste, but also maybe a really handy thing that I could have to store my own potatoes in eventually.
So actually looking at how we can then reuse the items or the packaging that we're purchasing instead of just throwing them right in the garbage. And yeah, so Margaret put in the chat here as well, we got the onion bags, eggshells, cardboard boxes, and egg crate. We got plastic, and potato peels can go to the compost. Yeah, so there's, I guess we're kind of pointing out two different types of waste that's occurring from this. The external packaging that these items are coming in, and then also the waste that's just kind of the byproduct of the food if you're not eating the entire piece of it. So with that, we've already got potato peels going to the compost. What other ways could we be reducing the waste that's being created from this?
Talking about peels, I think for some foods, you can just wash the exterior and just eat it with the peel. And actually, it turns out to be very nutritious. So, but of course, you have to wash very thoroughly. And if there's a lot of dirt, then yeah, you probably have to peel it. Or if it's spoiled, then you have to cut it. But yeah, I sometimes do that with some of my vegetables, is that I just scrub them really hard and wash them and just eat it like that. So.
So that's one really great technique for foods that come with edible peel, say. I'm not sure if everybody's out here trying to bite into an orange or a banana, but for pieces that are pretty good to just wash and eat, great way to reduce the waste there. What other ways could we be perhaps reducing maybe the plastic waste that's coming from the packaging, or maybe even the cans? Any ideas for that? Buying loose carrots and onions as opposed to getting the bags. Yeah, so it's a really great option, is to just buying them off the shelf, or if you're going to the farmer's market, just picking them up there as well is even better, to buy them local. And you can bring if you have your own reusable produce bags, you can use those, or my preference even is just to throw them in the cart that I'm using and just wash them when I get home. So you don't even need that additional bag. And that's a really great one from Judy, is using the web bag from the onions to make a scrubber or netting for the dryer exhaust outside the house. That's a really awesome way to reuse that waste and make use of something that could have just ended up in the landfill. You also have making candy from the peel oranges, or shaving out the peel from the pith and making flavored salt. That sounds really good. And yeah, that's certainly a great way for those peels that perhaps you're not biting right into. You can still find uses for them. For example, even soaking banana peels and making a bit of a plant fertilizer from them, which is really great. Also have, same with other citrus, bunch of lemon salt right now. Speaking of lemon salt, that sounds something that might be right up Hannah's alley as somebody who loves lemon and loves salt. So lots of different things, and depending on what your tastes are or what different items you're looking to make use of around the house, there's definitely a lot of great ways that you can reduce the waste that you could just not think twice about and throw in the garbage. And the crafting, I think, is also a really great idea. I know it's something we've definitely gotten into in our home, is making crafts out of things and seeing what you can make out of them. Also for the plants, using eggshells to help tomatoes grow and keeping slugs away. And yeah, from Lindsay, black beans and lentils being bought in bulk. So Bulk Barn has reusable containers. Yeah, they're reusable container programs. So you can actually bring in your own container to fill. As far as I know, Save-On doesn't have that type of program, but they also have a bulk section. So you'd still get a plastic bag, but you could buy it in bulk that way, or bring your own bag perhaps and just see if you can sneak it in there.
So I always find there are never enough tins to separate all the nuts and bolts and screws that you need in like your garage. And so tins can be fantastic for that purpose, or even paintbrushes, that kind of thing. I like the crafting suggestions, but sometimes it's nice to just have containers that also can get a little bit beat up. So yeah, preserving tin cans, although they're not too bad because they can be recycled almost infinitely as opposed to some plastics.
Yeah, any other, I guess, in looking at this, is there any fears that people have in looking at this, or particular challenges that you think you would personally face in looking at such a small collection of goods and kind of thinking, okay, how long can this last me? How do I create as little waste as possible from these items? Or are folks feeling like you can take it on now? You're ready to, face the grocery store. You can make your meals and meal plan. How's that feeling for folks?
Also, in our second workshop, we'll be talking specifically about how you can, reduce, reuse, and recycle your waste. So if you want, you can tune into that one. We'll go in specifically on how to use all that waste.
Thanks, Anne, for that. And yeah, Helga just got scared when I don't have seasonings. So I'm sure that's a pretty scary situation to be in, is bland food. Yeah, and that's a great suggestion there from Margaret, as well as buying your spices in bulk too, and then reducing the waste from those. Great. Well, thank you everybody for putting in your meal suggestions and for kind of discussing a bit of that waste. Next, we're going to jump into a bit more of a discussion. So pass that back to Anne.
Hey guys, so yeah, that was very, very interesting conversation, and there's so many cool ideas. I think we really have to, take a screenshot of this chat and just share it with everyone because there's really some great ideas in here. So, um, but yeah, so just to jump into discussion questions. So we told you a little bit about how to meal plan. We gave an example, and so I guess we can talk a little bit about what are the benefits of meal planning that you think you have when you will meal plan now or in the future, if you're already doing it or not. So you can just put in the chat what benefits you've personally received from meal planning.
I'll give it a stab while people are typing. One of the things that I really liked about meal planning this year is that I found it. So my family is really culpable of going to the store and not thinking about what meals we're going to get. We're really good about food waste, but that's just the way that my mom has always shopped since she had kids. So that's what we do. But one thing I found is that when you want to order online, um, it's you can't just wander the aisles and instantly target the things that you buy all the time. And when you're using one of those online um, meal orders through Superstore or Save On, you really need to know exactly what you need. Otherwise, it's super easy to forget things. And so we meal planned a lot this year because of having to use that rather than going to the store. And it was super helpful.
Thanks, Alga. And in the chat, see that Lindsay said healthier meals and being able to more easily resist getting takeout. Yeah, that is so true. Shopping for sales, yep, or on impulse can make that trickier, Margaret says, for sure. Then you have to remember all plans can be adjusted. Yeah, and that's another thing about meal planning is that sometimes when you meal plan, things don't always go according to plan, but I think that's also another benefit is you can get really creative, right? So I think someone mentioned in the chat that there was a good food box from PG Perk, and a lot of the foods in there, you don't really choose what's in there, but they just give it to you. And so you have to figure out, what am I going to do with these foods? And I think that's sort of the fun about meal planning too. It's like, oh, I can do whatever I want and maybe make a new recipe that's going to be in a diner one day or something. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So Judy says, when the pandemic started, we only ordered groceries online every 2 months. Had to really think about what to buy that was long lasting. Yeah. Yeah, it is quite a challenge during COVID. Yeah. Especially if you shop online. Yeah. I think that's also another challenge is like if you're not living close to a grocery store, or if the grocery store is closing where you live. I don't know. In Prince George, the Save On Foods is going to close downtown. So that'll definitely be sort of an issue for people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's a good tip, Helga. So it's good to sort of make a bunch of meals that you like to eat and then sort of go from there rather than a day by day plan. Yeah. I sort of do that too. I have it like week by week, really, because I make it in bulk and then I eat it for the whole week. But yeah.
I'm always torn with Zoom between responding in the chat because it feels more inclusive of the people who are using the chat and responding with word. So I apologize if my texts are coming in late and then I jump on here.
No worries, Helga.
I definitely have to say it's what's coming across through all the chats here. It's just the flexibility. I think that's kind of everyone's touching on that a bit, but I think it's pretty nice how flexible it can be. Like you can plan for a week, or you can plan for 2 months, or you can plan based off what's already in your fridge. It's and everything, and there's so much flexibility in the recipes that you can make if you really look into it. Like it's kind of this whole world of meal planning, I guess, that's like extremely flexible for every person. So I think it's something that like really can apply to anyone. And I think people might think it's daunting because it's a lot of planning and a lot of organization, and especially if you're not used to grocery shopping like that. But I think it's just so flexible that it's not hard for anyone to kind of adopt into how they approach grocery shopping and cooking meals for themselves and their families.
Yeah, that's a really good point, Hannah. And also sort of bringing people together. It's sort of nice too, instead of like going out to the restaurant or something, you can all come together as a family and cook together, learn how to cook. I remember in university, I was like, I don't know how to cook. And then, you know, you have to learn those skills, and then it gets really fun when you like cook with a bunch of roommates or with your family. And yeah, it's really nice to know what's in your food for sure as well. So yeah, we can go to the next question then if there's nothing else. Oh, Judy said, yeah, the grocery place is 15 miles. Wow, that's really far. Yeah, people with disabilities. Yeah, that's also something to consider. Yeah, so not a lot of people have the luxury of going shopping every single day. Yeah, it's just, it doesn't happen. And also if you don't have a car or something, right? Yeah, that's super hard. Okay, so the second question is, what are ways you accommodate picky eaters in your meal plan? So I don't know if like you live with somebody who's a vegan and then you're a meat eater, and or somebody doesn't like tomatoes and somebody does. So how are ways you guys accommodate that?
I think this is a really tough one.
It is, yeah.
I tend to just force my friends to try things. I have a friend who's had a really limited experience with food, and especially like Indian food and Asian food and all those kinds of things. And so whenever we would cook together, or I went over to her house to cook pre-COVID, I was like, we're always going to make something that you've never had before. But I think sometimes the best way to do that is to cook it with the person and to let them try it every step of the way, so they know what's in it that they do know about, and then they're sort of more involved in the process and invested in the final product, as opposed to just throwing something down on the table and saying, eat this now.
Yeah, that's a good point, Helga. Yeah, I sort of do that too. I'm a vegetarian, so I make people eat vegetarian food. And they're like, oh, it's not that bad. Okay. It's not only salad. That's good. But yeah, it's also good to introduce people to new foods. That's also really good. And then Margaret here says that I've learned a lot about alternative spices with a similar flavor profile for friends with allergies to more common seasonings. Ooh. That's interesting. I really need to, you know, step up my spice game, because I don't really know how to do that yet. Like, because all the spices, I don't know. How do you figure out how to make the flavor profile similar, Margaret, if you can elaborate? Friendlier presentation too. If they're used to chicken nuggets, make something in a familiar form factor. Ooh, yeah, try to trick them. This is actually chicken. No, it isn't. Yeah, but that's true. You can actually make things look very much like chicken nuggets, but they're just as yummy. Learn a lot. You can work on. Need to try more spices when the pandemic is over? Yeah, that's true. I also go for a few spices as well. Yeah, those are really safe, like salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, and curry. You can use that all the time for anything. So that's pretty safe. Galangal tastes a lot like ginger. Wow, I never knew a galangal existed. What is that word? I'm gonna write that down because I don't know what galangal is. but now I'm so curious to try. Kubeb. I haven't heard of that either. What is this? Peppercorn. Oh yes, I've heard of peppercorn. Awesome. Allergic to onion and garlic. Oh my gosh, really? That's so hard. Man, I can't imagine being allergic to onion and garlic. Kubeb is called long pepper. Really? So RB asked, who do you think are the biggest food wasters? Youth, seniors, families with children? What should the government or people do to make it better? Huh, interesting. Anyone want to tackle that question?
I would say that food services or restaurants and cafes or supermarkets, because I read that like 40% of food goes to waste. I do know of there's a new app. I don't know. Yeah, it is international, I think. It's called Too Good to Go. And basically like restaurants, bakeries, and shops, when it's like closer to the last hour or two of business for the day, when they have leftover food, they put it in their app, and then you can pull up a map in your city to see like what's near you, and you can buy the food at like a third or a quarter of their cost. So say it's a big bag of groceries, you can buy it for like $3.99, $4.99, $5.99 or whatever. Like in New York City, they have these fancy bakeries and stuff, and they have a lot of pastries left over. So you could pay like $5 or $10 and get like 7 different pastries. Whereas if you bought them individually, they're like $10 a piece. So.
Wow, that's awesome, Judy. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't know about that app.
You're welcome.
Yeah. So yeah, to answer your question, Irby, probably supermarkets and restaurants. Yeah. And how
Even before it gets to the supermarket and restaurant, a lot of food is just discarded because it doesn't fit a certain profile of what food should look like, or, you know, should, yeah. A lot of it is based on appearance, right? So we have a lot of waste even before it gets to the consumer, which is scary.
Yes,
I think
there's another company that's taken advantage of that called Imperfect Foods. And so they take all the produce that's supposedly quote unquote imperfect. It's not like a perfectly shaped potato or zucchini or whatever. And they box it all up and they deliver it right to your house for you. Yes, that's it.
Wow. Thanks for sharing.
You're welcome.
Great.
I know of another company that's kind of taking advantage of that aesthetic food waste. It's called Outcast Foods, and they make vitamins and supplements and a couple other things just based on like using discarded food from supermarkets. It's really cool. I take their multivitamin.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing, Lindsay. Definitely going to check this out. I never knew about these. Oh, and also Margaret up here says busy people as well tend to waste a lot of food, and that is true. Because they tend to buy a lot of convenience foods. Yeah. See, that's why it's good to meal plan. Even if you're busy, you can spend maybe, 30 minutes meal planning, and then you'll be a lot less stressed throughout the week or the month. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And that's why it's so important to have a lot of recycling bins and other appropriate waste bins, like very close to you, because people are intrinsically lazy. So they don't want to go out of their way to recycle things. They'll just put in the garbage. Suzanne says, our Salvation Army has a food greening program that includes a free food shelf. Oh, wow, that's awesome. Many of the sandwiches and salads are offered during their lunch program that all come from grocery stores. Hey, that is amazing. Why isn't it advertised? Or is it? Or yeah. Food greening program. Definitely have to Google this.
There's a couple of places in my city that have these big yellow refrigerators, and it just says like you take what you need, and then you could drop off stuff too. And then there's a couple of shelves next to it, so you can put some items in the fridge or leave some items on the shelves. And if you need something, then you take it,
That's
or you can
awesome.
donate.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, we also have the food bank at UNBC too. So yeah, oh, more people should have something like that, definitely. Okay. Anything that expires, go to some local farmers for their pigs. Also a great idea. So there's lots of farmers around and they would love, your apples or some leftovers. Pigs eat anything, so just feed it to them. That's a great idea. But is there a page or something, a Facebook page or something where people advertise, hey, I need some food for my pigs, or you can put on there, oh, I have some leftovers. Does anybody want it? I guess you can go on Facebook Marketplace, but I'm just wondering if there's some more organized website or Facebook page or something of that sort.
Sometimes in our local buy nothing group, people will list things like, oh, I just bought this. I don't need, a whole dozen of these. I have 10 extra, whatever. Or I ordered this, but found out that we can't have it because, my kids are allergic to X, Y, and Z, or that sort of thing. And they'll list on there like, okay, only good for the next couple of hours. Or sometimes people will deliver the wrong food item. Like people shop online for foods and they might get somebody else's order. And because it's been to your house already, the company can't take it back. So then someone will put it up and be like, we just got this delivered. Does anyone want it?
Oh, that's cool. And what is it called, Judy?
It's just your, like, if you Google like buy nothing and then your neighborhood.
Oh, buy nothing. Okay.
Yeah, they're all over. I think they're all over the world. It's like buy nothing and then whatever your town or city is or whatever your neighborhood is, because they want it to be hyper local.
Cool. Okay. Can somebody find that and put that in the chat?
I think I found the leading group's website. Let me know if this looks right, Judy.
Yeah, that looks right. The Buy Nothing Project.
Yeah.
Because then you have to like start your own neighborhood one. Like if there isn't one in your neighborhood, you start it, and then some of them grow so big that they have like, what do you call it? Like aggregates or whatever. They separate because it's like, okay, we've reached 2,000 people. Sorry, we just like separate you guys now. The whole point is to getting to know your neighbors and stuff. So sometimes you have stuff to give away. Sometimes they have stuff to give away, that sort of thing. So it's not just food. So it's like, it could be shoes, clothes, furniture, baby diapers, like baby clothes, your old clothes, whatever. Or what's big on there is college textbooks. Usually like year end, it's like, I don't want to take these home.
That's cool. I'm definitely going to check that out. Thanks, Judy. And then Margaret says, one of my friends delivers Cobb's bread to organizations in town. Cobb's doesn't sell its day olds. They donate them to the community. Oh, that's great. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. So people should donate their foods that they're not using instead of throwing them away. I guess that's the takeaway from this. Margaret also says pre-pandemic. Oh, yeah. I bought a couple of bento boxes so I can bring food anywhere I went. Good idea. Okay. Oh, Suzanne, you have to go. All right. Well, thanks for joining us. And I hope you can join us for our other workshops. Really appreciate your input and your participation in this workshop. Thank you so much. Okay, so I know we spent a lot of time on that question, but it's just so many exciting and interesting facts here about my community that I didn't know about in terms of food waste and things like that. So let's move on to the third question though. How do you meal plan to reduce our packaging waste? So how do you meal plan to reduce your packaging waste? I think we sort of went through this already. So maybe we can go to the fourth question because I think we're running out of time. So what are some other challenges that make it hard to meal plan effectively in your life? I think some of us mentioned the distance to our grocery store. It's definitely a factor if you have a disability.
There's distance, there's cost of the groceries, like
Mm-hmm.
inflation or whatever, everything is going up higher in prices. There's like, you can meal plan something, but then like if you don't communicate to the other people in your household and then they eat the ingredient that you needed for something.
Oh yeah. True. Any other challenges you guys encounter? Energy levels. Yeah. Totally. Yeah, COVID has really put a wrench in everybody's lives. Making it more difficult to shop. Yeah. It's unfortunate PG Park doesn't have the boxes for the rest of the summer. I hope that sort of becomes a thing next year, because I'm sure many people will be interested. Okay, cool. So, yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yes. Helga, sorry.
I'd like to hear from Margaret on this because she's also plant-based. But one of the things I find frustrating, not really a barrier or a challenge, but so much of the plant protein or plant alternatives come in really heavily packaged containers. Even your tofu comes wrapped in plastic a lot of the time. And I always find there's this real disconnect between the idea of eating plant-based and then producing all this extra packaging. And so I'm always trying to find ways to, reduce that in some manner, but it's kind of tricky.
Yeah, it is. You're right. I think you can make your own tofu.
You
And I
can.
know my mom makes it, but I've never tried it before.
Yes, it's a little bit time consuming for a student.
Yes.
But yeah. Definitely something I'd love to try.
Mm-hmm. Offering a local food box throughout the summer. Oh, really? That's great, Shauna. Yeah, keep us posted on that because I would be interested in a box as well. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, Margaret said making tofu. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Asian groceries sell tofu in bulk. But yeah, unfortunately, we don't have an Asian grocery store, or do we?
We have the Marquee, which is the international, but I don't think that he carries tofu in bulk. I think he only carries it in smaller packaging. But I might actually inquire to him because he's brought stuff in for me specifically before. That's a good idea, Margaret.
Cool. All right, so we'll move on. Are we good? Any other challenges? Okay, so we're just going to zoom past here because we're almost to the end of our workshop. Thank you so much, guys, for participating. It's really amazing. I didn't expect so much input like this, and it's really great. We can go on forever and ever and talk, but yeah, unfortunately, it has to end sometime. So Helga is going to conclude.
All right, well, I think we've done a pretty good job of concluding with that discussion in a lot of ways. I think everyone has a lot of skills and experience that they've really shared, and I know I've certainly learned a couple of things from today, which is super exciting. So just to sort of sum everything up, we know that meal planning is quick, or can be, and it can be quite flexible in reducing waste. It can be helpful for reducing both perishable waste and plastic waste or packaging waste. And meal plans can help you evaluate how much meat versus vegetable protein you're eating and whether you're relying on in-season produce. So it can tell you exactly what you're eating when. And when you need to avoid going to the store for long periods, as we've discussed, detailed meal planning can be really useful. Now, can also be a challenge. There are lots of spreadsheets and information available online, and we've got some of those links later on in this presentation that we can share with you guys. But I hope we've given you at least some of the information that will allow you to start asking questions, or, you know, differently formed questions than you would have previously to the internet or to other people. And I think what this workshop has really showed is that there are a lot of people with these skills, and it can be great to just get in contact with them and learn that way. We'd love it if you would share some of the things that you've taken away from this workshop with us. That would really help us in designing workshops for the future and improving on our skills and delivering them. So please feel free to share in the chat. You're a very vocal group, which is so nice for our first one. So thank you very much.
Food containers as seed starters. Good idea. Tofu packages.
I need to read up and learn more about spices. Venture outside my salt, pepper, garlic, and onion powder.
Me too.
What works for you though, right? Like, if that's what makes you happy, then all the power to you.
Yeah, I was trying to be like super minimalistic because, like I said, I literally haven't been to a grocery store since January 12th of 2020. So like the every 2 months thing of shopping at the local market near me, they were delivering last year, but then they went from like 60 orders a day to like 8,000 orders a day. So they had to like seriously change up their logistics. And so they no longer deliver in my area because I'm outside the radius now. But like, so whenever like somebody offers like, can I pick up some groceries and stuff for you? I'm like very cognizant of like what I'm asking them to pick up. Will it last a long time, shelf life? Like, am I asking for, like, I don't want to ask for too much, you know, because that's, you know, like greedy and stuff, but like also like, what can I do with this? So it's always like the basics of salt, pepper, garlic powder, onion powder, lemon juice, olive oil, because, you know, shelf stable. And then like beans, because, you know, they can last a long time. And then like, I would normally do like canned beans because they're so much easier and I'm lazy about it. But I'm like, one, that's too heavy, two, that's too expensive, and three, I don't have enough storage for that. Yeah, just like regular beans. And then that way you have them in bulk. And then you have to have more patience in soaking them and taking whatever and cooking them that way. But yeah, in the last year plus, it's been like hard to like meal plan because you're like, what do I have? What will last? And it's literally like you're rationing food. I also freeze as much as I possibly can. No matter what comes into the house, I'm like, can I freeze this? Some things yes, some things no.
Yeah, those are really great tips. Freezing, preserving your food. Yeah. And Samuel said, I was surprised by the 50% of purchased fruits and veggies that are wasted and how composting at home is better than letting organics composting in landfills. Very true. Yeah. Which is why we have a composting forum workshop number 4. So stay tuned.
I do regret not learning more about gardening. My grandmother was alive when I was little because she grew like pretty much like everything, like in the small patch of space that she had. Because where I'm living now, it's like I can possibly grow something, but then I also know that the squirrels, the cats, and the rabbits eat everything, and it's like, and I don't know how to, like they can. It was news to me. Apparently, squirrels chew through wires. which I did not know that could happen.
Yeah, I know there's a whole bunch of critters that's, are after your your food that you spend so hard to just try to grow, and then they just eat it all. So yeah, that's definitely a problem here. But actually, speaking of that, there will be a guest speaker for the gardening workshop, and he'll talk a little bit about how to start your own outdoor garden. So that will be workshop 3. Sorry, I'm sort of plugging this in like an advertisement, but but I think it's really important that you guys know about that, so you can attend it and sort of learn from the experts. Tomato and pepper are sharing a pot in my living room. Yes, so you can actually grow it indoors as well. That is true. There you go. Margaret has her tomato plants right behind her. That's awesome. So Margaret, you should definitely give us some tips on how to do indoor gardening then.
Yeah, I've never indoor gardened because I feel like whenever we try to have plants and stuff or anything with soil, those little but I don't know what kind of bugs they are, but they're like these little bugs like start, and I'm like, I don't want bugs in my house. Fungus nets.
Yeah, totally. Or last year with all the rain, there was a bunch of slugs. So
Whoa.
that wasn't a good year for gardening, I think. Yeah, another cool thing is you can grow plants from the grocery store. So tomatoes, you can get the seeds from those. You can also grow green onions. So we're going to show you in the gardening workshop on how you can actually get produce from the grocery store and use that to start your indoor gardening, actually. So. Oh, okay, yes. So Helga just prompted me that we don't have a lot of time, just 5 minutes. Sorry, I'm enjoying myself too much
Sorry,
here.
Anne. I also think it's super cool. It's really wonderful to see everyone sharing their knowledge and having such good conversation. But I just want to keep it on time for folks that may have to leave.
Yeah, thank you, Helga. Okay, so we're going to move on. And we're going to go to the prizes, what you've all been waiting for. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then Shauna is going to have a cool wheel spinny thing, and we're going to decide who's going to get the prizes.
Okay, awesome. So we'll see how well this works for us today. But yeah, thank you everybody so much for joining us today. And as you saw on the slide there, we have 2 prizes, a reusable mesh produce bags, and if you're in Prince George, a PG Per Good Store coupon or gift card, or if you're not within Prince George, a Save on Foods gift card. So I'm going to spin this, and hopefully this will work to see who wins.
Which one are we spinning for first?
It's all one prize together.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah. And that is Rowan. So I believe that's RB on our call. Rowan, if you would like to send us either a direct message in the chat to let us know if you would like to receive that prize, that would be great. And yeah, we'll be in touch about how to get that to you.
Okay, awesome. Congratulations on the winner. And the last thing we want to do, actually not the last thing, but these are just a bunch of interesting links that we thought you might be interested in that relates to the whole meal planning workshop. So feel free to check it out. Then
I don't think you're sharing the PowerPoint right now, Anne.
Oh, oops, sorry.
It's okay. It happens.
There's the interesting links.
There they are.
Yeah. And then Hannah's going to talk about the social media because she's our social media manager. And an awesome one at that.
Yeah, so these are our handles for social media. I'm sure some of you have found us through there. So we'll be posting updates on future workshops and other kind of interesting facts about environmentalism and reducing waste in the kitchen. We also will be posting, some of the things that we talked about and learned here on there. So that's kind of like a summary, so that everyone gets to see what we talked about, and we get to share the information that we're learning here. And also you can email us at ecolivingkitchen@gmail.com if you have any questions or concerns or anything that you need. We will be able to answer, hopefully.
And one last thing before we all go, we do also have a feedback survey. As this was our first workshop, we are hoping to hear what all of y'all thought about it and what you would like to see from us in the future, and so that we can plan for our upcoming ones even more as we move forward. So I'm popping a link to that in the chat here. It'd be great if you could all fill that out and let us know your thoughts. We'll also be sending this out in an email if you don't get a chance to grab it right now. So thanks. I'll pass that back to Helga for our just our final conclusion.
All right, well, thank you all once again for joining us and for contributing so much. It's been fantastic. We'd love it if you stayed in touch through social media, through email. Let us know what you thought in the survey or contact us directly. And we look forward to seeing you on there or through another workshop. That's it. That's all I've got to say.
This is fantastic. I didn't know it was your first one, so this is fantastic.
Thanks, Judy. We really enjoyed the conversations with you and everyone. It was awesome. Okay, cool. So
Are you going to do the honors of ending the meeting, Anne, or should one of us?